Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, what's going on, folks, and welcome to another edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily here on WST. Andrew Paterson, Michael Remis with you. Game day show times two. Not too often we've got a Moose game to talk about when we go on the air at 1, but they dropped the puck in front of thousands of school kids downtown. Big win for the Moose this morning down at Canada Life Center. And the main event tonight at MSG, the world's most famous arena. The Winnipeg Jets and the New York Rangers dropping the puck 6 p.m. Winnipeg time. We're going to be all over this game. We'll have Jim Cerny, an old friend of ours, with Blueshirts United jumping on the program. We'll talk a little bit about the great season that the Rangers have had, as well as some familiar faces to Jet fans now putting the Blueshirts on in New York. Obviously, the unfortunate end of Blake Wheeler's season as well, and more on the home team heading into tonight. We'll also chop it up with Jeff Hamilton of the Winnipeg Free Press, his thoughts on the Jets, how they're looking right now heading into the rest of this road trip, their quest for first place in the Central Division, as well as, still legitimate hopes of the President's Trophy right now. But all about one game tonight. And there was some news that wasn't great news, for everyone involved with the Winnipeg Jets today. Rick Bowness needing now. It's not terrible news. Rick won't be on the bench though tonight. He's had to come back to Winnipeg for a what the team referred to as a minor procedure. We'll hear from Scott Arniel, Adam Lowry, and Mark Scheifele as well. And the belief is that Rick could be back on the bench this weekend as the team continues the road trip against the New Jersey Devils the Islanders and Capitals after playing the New Jersey Devils. But big one tonight, huge test for the Winnipeg Jets. And Scott Arniel, who did such a great job filling in for Bones while he was away from the team at the beginning of the season, will be the acting head coach for the Winnipeg Jets tonight. And then later on in the program, you're going to love this interview, folks. A.K. Gassama from the U of M Bisons, star receiver for the club, Winnipeg native via Sierra Leone, came as a refugee when he was about 4 years old, is the lone representative of Manitoba at the CFL Combine, which is getting underway tomorrow. Had a chance to catch up with him, and it was a really great interview. This young man has great energy, very much excited for what is next to come. So he's going to join us towards the end of the program after we dive into all the hockey topics surrounding this big game between two of the top teams in the National Hockey League tonight in the Winnipeg Jets and the New York Rangers. Listen, just before we bring in Michael Remis, I do want to thank the sponsors that make this show happen each and every day. The great people at Princess Auto, Coolbet Canada, Consolidated Supply, Wallace & Wallace, Little Brown Jug, F Apparel, Canadian Club, Modern Man Barber Shops, Manitoba Battery, the Winnipeg Jets, Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, Sport Manitoba, along with the good people at Manitoba Liquor and Lotteries. And of course, we will get to a why not question of the day for Not Autocorp over at Waverly and McGillivray. Welcome to everyone listening on podcast. And shout out to the chat on YouTube. What's going on, everyone? Hit that thumbs up button if you haven't already, and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Michael Remis, I am looking forward to this one tonight. Always cool when you see your team playing at MSG. Even better when we're talking about two of the 90-plus point teams in the league going head-to-head.
Yeah, big game. What do they call it? Measuring stick game. Has all the
old
words.
litmus test?
Yeah, litmus test. All the words they use to describe, but it's a bit of a step up since they played, a bit of a step up after playing the Ducks and the Blue Jackets. Not exactly playoff teams, and just NHL standings. Watching not a lot of games yesterday, but yes, the New York Rangers still comfortably first place in the Metro Division, 4 points ahead of Carolina, and the Jets, they are tied in first place, but first by points percentage in the Central. So two division winners going head-to-head. And, you don't really have the storylines of the former Jets in the lineup, and Blake Wheeler, who's in a top-line role and with injury, and Jacob Trouba, not in the lineup tonight, but there is another former Jet, Jack Roslovic, who is on the top line of the New York Rangers right now with Chris Kreider and Mika Zibanejad. So I think it's still going to be a big game tonight. We'll see how the Jets fare because last time they played a playoff team in Nashville, didn't go so well. But I think they're playing better here. They had two, stepping stone type of games, 12-1 in their last two, like 12 goals for, 1 against. That's pretty good. It'll be a different test though tonight, a bit of a different challenge.
Yeah, listen, with all due respect to the Anaheim Ducks and the Columbus Blue Jackets, those outfits are not of the caliber of the New York Rangers, who are legitimately one of the top teams in the National Hockey League, a true Stanley Cup contender. We've got an incredible goaltending matchup tonight. But just to your point about Jack Roslovic, I mean, how about Jack, struggling with his hometown Blue Jackets? Apparently he'd wanted to trade. Where have we heard that before? But he got one at the deadline, acquired by the New York Rangers. And for a guy that's trying to make the most of this opportunity, I don't think he could be in a better spot or a better situation than riding shotgun with Mika Zibanejad and Chris Kreider on the top line of the Blueshirts.
Now, and the Rangers, they've got their top two lines. It could be 1A, 1B, and it's been Kreider and Zibanejad and whoever else. Blake Wheeler spent some time there, and they've kind of been rotating. And Jack Roslovic's got that spot now. He's got 3 points in 6 games. Kind of similar pace to what he did in Columbus. Has 23 points in 40 games, but a much bigger role here with the Rangers. And their second line, very dangerous, Artemi Panarin, who's having an incredible season. With Vincent Trocheck at center and, first overall pick, Alexei Lafreniere, who's coming along maybe a bit slower than, there's so much hype being a first overall pick, but he's putting together a solid season too. So the Rangers, they could score. They have strong defense, although they are missing Jacob Trouba tonight. Ryan Lindgren as well out, but still a big test for the Winnipeg Jets. And as far as Jets, do you want me to go over these Jets lineup changes here? Logan Stanley, I mean, it's tough. The guy gets the jacket last game after hammering home a massive slap shot for his first goal of the season, and he's out for tonight. Dylan Samberg coming in. And Nate Schmidt stays in, though. Colin Miller, he's a healthy scratch, so Samberg Schmidt goes back to the third D pairing. And Cole Perfetti, a healthy scratch for his third straight game. No changes on forward. I mean, tough to argue, make some changes after you just put up 12 goals in 2 games.
Yeah, listen, I had speculated yesterday that Samberg would be back in the lineup. I didn't think that there was any way he wasn't coming back in. But it doesn't surprise me that Nate Schmidt stayed in. Listen, Miller looked good in the first game. He had a rough game against Nashville. Schmidt and Samberg have been a great pairing all season long, particularly doing the number one job of defensemen in the NHL, and that's keeping the puck out of their net. So whether this is going to be the top 6 moving forward, I guess we'll see. I'm sure Miller will come in for another game or two. But I think Schmidt's done enough to stay in the lineup. Stan, listen, credit to him for having 2 good games, but he's still not a top 7 or a top 6 guy right now for the Winnipeg Jets. But he probably did himself a service by, playing 2 quality games, getting on the scoreboard as well. I think this team, this organization believes in him to an extent. But, a game like this, you want to put your best foot forward and give yourself the best possible lineup and the best chance to win. And I think they were doing that with this club tonight. Listen, we're going to get to the locker room in a minute and a little update on Bones from Scott Arneal. But as I mentioned, come in and just a quick mention of the Moose. 4 in a row, 9 of 10 now after a 5-1 win in front of a crazy crowd of school kids down at Canada Life Center today. I can't remember the team ever. I remember them playing on the road quite a bit and having the odd 10:30, 11 a.m. start. Can't remember them doing that here, but credit to Jeff Major and the crew there for the Moose, making probably, I'd imagine, one of their biggest group days of the entire season And it would have been a real highlight for the kids who would get out of class and get down and see a hockey game. And the home team delivered in a big way. I'd love to take credit for the WST bump for Thomas Milic, but he was already the AHL Player of the Week when he came on the show yesterday. He just kept it going, allowing only one goal in the game today. Dawson Barteau got the team on the board. Toninato and Capobianco with assists. Parker Ford making it 2-0. Lambeau and Chibrikov with the assist. Tico Napali's favorite, Jeffrey Viel, with an unassisted shorty. One of our favorites, Axel Janssen-Fjallby, in the second period from Ashton Schottner and Brad Lambert. And Lambert completed a 3-point game with a goal in the second period to put the team up 5-1. And Jeff Malott with the assist. Stars in the game, Brad Lambert, number 1, a goal and 2 assists. Jeffrey Viel, number 2. And Thomas Milic with the third star, allowing only 1 goal. And as I said, it was fun talking to Milic yesterday. You could just feel the level of excitement that the Moose are getting right now. And not often we get on the air right after they finish up. I wanted to make sure we got that in, Remo, because Brad Lambert continues to play his ass off right now. He is really putting together a quality first full season in the American Hockey League. And Thomas Milic has turned into a great story. If you missed that interview, go back to yesterday's show. He joined us in the sort of the last half hour of the program. Great chat with him. And good things are going for the AHL team, Reem. Now it's time for the Winnipeg Jets to step up, as they did early on in the season without their head coach Rick Bowness and Scott O'Neill on the bench against a very, very good opponent in the New York Rangers.
Yeah, I thought, first of all, Brad Lambert, exceptional season. He's got 46 points in 52 games. Thomas Milic putting together another solid performance. And yeah, watch out for the Moose after struggling to start. Have really picked it up here. And for the Jets, we saw them get up for that game against Vancouver. You knew it was a top game going in with 2 big teams. We thought we were going to see some jump from the Jets.
First Vancouver game.
The first Vancouver game. And we thought we'd see some jump from the Jets last week against Nashville. Nashville appeared to be just surging over everyone. The Jets got caught in their path, but how are they going to fare tonight against the Rangers? Will be the Jets that we've seen the last 2 games. I'm very interested to see. They've seen the chat like, oh, they don't beat playoff teams. We've seen them beat playoff teams throughout the season. They've done very well against the East. I'm expecting a tight, low-scoring game tonight.
Yeah, well, bring it on. Cannot wait for this one tonight. It looks like it's going to be Hellebuck and Shesterkin. Hell of a goaltending matchup in this one tonight. But again, the big story coming out of the morning is that Rick Bowness is coming back. As I mentioned, Scott O'Neill. The team described it as a minor procedure. And Arnie, and we'll hear from Arnie in a minute, said that he could rejoin the team this weekend. In fact, why don't we start off there, Remo? Here's all we can tell you is what the team gave us today. But Scott O'Neill met the media after the morning skate today. And first things first, how's Coach? What's up with Rick Bowness? And here's what Scott had to say.
Got a phone call the other night, 2 nights ago. They knew he was having some issues, and then in the morning there he took off, went to the hospital with mullet, and pretty much spent the whole day there. So kind of knew that he had something happening, and but they know what it is. He's going to go home and get looked at. He might even be back on. We'll see how it goes. He might even be back for the end of the trip. We'll just see how things can work out.
So in that sense, I guess concern, but also a sense of relief that he got
it wasn't. It's serious, but it wasn't something that was. Obviously, it's going to be extended long term. So, we're just happy that the docs found out what it is, and they'll get it looked after and get it worked on.
So there you have it on Rick Bowness's condition. And again, there are degrees to this stuff. I think everyone that's dealt with things, from the sounds of it, and all we can take it is what Arnie had to say. This was something that obviously was an issue for the last couple days. He spent plenty of time in the hospital there on the road with the club. Going back, the team put out a release earlier this morning that Rick's going to have, as they describe, a minor procedure. And it would be great to see him rejoin the club on the weekend. The one thing I think that history has told us this year, Remis, when Rick was gone for a more extended period of time, is that this team is in very good hands with Scott Arniel on the bench, and their record playing without their head coach spoke to that with that great start they had early on in the year.
Yeah, wouldn't wake up, but this morning the Jets put out the release that he was away for a minor medical procedure, and sometimes you're like, oh, is it actually minor? But from hearing Scott Arniel say, yeah, he could actually be back this weekend, sounds like nothing that serious, but hopefully he's able to return to full health quickly. And as far as, what was the other thing? Oh, yeah, as far as the record with Scott Arniel, yeah, I mean, he came in last year when he was out, and they played fine. And again, this year when Bowness was away to be with his wife. So no concerns, I think, for the Jets or for the team with Scott Arniel, but interim head coach right now.
Yeah, definitely not. I mean, just everyone wishing Rick well. Hopefully we'll see Bones back on the bench soon. But in the meantime, Arnie will take over, and we'll see what this team can do tonight. Doesn't sound like Bones is a possibility for Thursday. But as Arnie just mentioned, they're still holding out hope and the possibility that Rick can rejoin the club for those back-to-back matinee games against the Islanders and Capitals on Saturday and Sunday. We'll get to those games later on the week. Tonight, it's all about this challenge against the New York Rangers. Here's what Arnie had to say about the big challenge ahead of his club tonight at MSG.
It's obviously a huge game and against a real good opponent. We just got to, we've done it in the past where we take care of business, and those guys have done a great job of staying focused on what they have to do and not worrying about, obviously what's happening away from the rink. So, we've got a big challenge ahead of us, and, hopefully the guys are all ready to go.
You mentioned there's a lot of confidence in this group. I mean, everyone realizes who you played the last two games, but still 12-1 is 12-1, right, in terms of score differential. So a lot of guys feeling good about their game.
Yeah, I mean, your offensive guys, when they can score, once they get one, they get on rolls, and that's nice however it comes about.
Yeah.
But more than anything, I thought that coming off the Nashville game, our detail and our work ethic and our compete and our execution was so much better in the last two games. No matter who the opponent was, that was what we were trying to zoom in on, and that's what we're really going to have to do tonight against the Rangers.
All right, so there's Scott Arniel. More from Arniel in just a minute. We'll get into the lineup and the lineup decisions tonight. One other bit of, we'll take it as good news. I think it has to be good news. I don't know, Remis, if you caught the intermission last night. Our pal Rennie looking resplendent down in Florida at the NHL GM meetings. Rennie on with Elliot Friedman, and Friedge offered this. I guess he was sort of pressing Chevy for some information on Gabriel Vilardi. And he said, and they reported on Sportsnet last night, the Jets do expect Gabriel Vilardi to return this season. It's been really difficult to talk about this. We've been doing our own little detective work on enlarged spleen and all of that with our page from the Mayo Clinic last week on the program. But again, every instance is different. But I had to say, watching that was good news because, man, you see the way this team has looked lately with the addition of Tyler Toffoli, and you just think how lethal this top six could be if Gabe Vilardi, who's had such a great season when he's been in the lineup, can be there. And as I say, this was not a massive report, but the Jets are progressing, assuming and hoping and expecting that number 13 will be back in the lineup at some point this year, and that is good news.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see, but it was nice to see Elliot mention that on his hit with Rennie yesterday at the GM's meetings in Florida. A couple other small tidbits coming out of that, but for Jets fans, you want to see Vilardi, you have to wonder how great the top six would be. What's it going to do the lines as well? I imagine, Vilardi would go back to the top with Schafely and Connor, and Iafallo would move down probably, I guess, to the fourth line because third line has been consistent all season. So Vilardi was just starting to pick up. Has the power plays looking dangerous. He found his spot there beside the net. He was healthy until he got injured. Then they found this spleen issue, which, yes, we turn into Winnipeg spleen talk on Friday. Thankfully, we've turned the page on that, and we're just kind of counting down until, okay, when's the next update? When's he going to be back in the lineup?
Yeah, not expecting anything imminent like on this road trip, but the hope is at some point. This bottom line is Gabe Vilardi needs to be back for this club to have their best chance and do some damage in the playoffs. But as far as the lineup goes tonight, here's what Scott Arniel had to say about keeping the forwards together. But Dylan Samberg coming back in, and Nate Schmidt staying in on that third pairing with the guy that he's played with for the majority of this season.
We've got these AD, and we want to make sure that we keep everybody up and running. And Dylan had a chance to kind of sit back and kind of we work on some things. And Stan stepped in and did a fantastic job. And that's kind of it's not the best position you want to be in, and it's hard to tell those guys that they're not playing. But at the same time, we need the depth, and everybody's got to keep rolling at this time of year.
No changes though to the forwards for tonight. That fourth line obviously had a really nice game. I think they technically scored 3 goals the other night because one got called back, but same thing, you may see those other guys rotate in and out here on the trip.
Yeah, it gives. Yeah, we've got to get everybody back in there. So we'll see how it works. We got a bunch of games in a very short period of time, but our fourth line was real good. That when you can get those kind of minutes and those kind of situations where especially when they can score. But we've talked about in the past, 4-line team, deep on our defense, and it's nice to see those guys get rewarded for it.
All right, so there's Jets head coach, or interim head coach, I guess, technically, for tonight. Scott Arniel on the lineup, Dylan Samberg back in, Logan Stanley to the press box, Nate Schmidt remains in the lineup. A newcomer, Colin Miller, will be hanging out with Stan in the press box. Moving on to the captain. This team has played games before without Rick Bowness, but I think at times like this, you go to guy with the C for his reaction. I believe it was probably Mike McIntyre. Talked to Adam Lowry about their coach, Rick Bowness, and not having him with the club for tonight.
First and foremost, we're thinking of Rick and offering our support however we can. I think it's tough news anytime you find out there's medical procedures, but I think when you think about the list of things, what it could be. I think we're pretty thankful that it's just a minor procedure, and we expect to see him back shortly once he's rested and recovered. So we dealt with this earlier when Rick was away for an extended period of time with Judy, and I think it's important. Family comes first, and we all know that, and your health is so important, major priority. So we'll carry on, and Arnie and the rest of the coaching staff have done a great job in his absence of getting us prepared, making sure our details are right, and kind of the messaging stays the same. So it's tough to lose the leader on the bench and kind of in the room and everything, but we've got a great supporting staff with the coaches and the leadership group in this room. So we're hopefully going to get off to a great start tonight, and hopefully put Rick's mind at ease as he recovers.
All right, there is your captain, Adam Lowry, just discussing and expressing he and his teammates' support for Bones while he takes care of whatever he's got to get taken care of, and hopefully they see him back on the bench really soon. That being said, it's all business tonight when the puck drops at MSG with Arnie on the bench. Here's Captain Adam Lowry on the matchup tonight against the Rangers.
Obviously, they're missing some critical guys on the back end, and Wheels up front, and Hedel, but they've had a tremendous season. I think we have to be ready to work. We have to be ready to compete on pucks. I think that was kind of the messaging going into the last few games. Is regardless of who we're playing, stylistically, we want to look the same. We want to not change whether we're playing an elite team or a team that's kind of in a rebuilding stage. I think that's where we've gotten ourselves in trouble. Sometimes we stray away from that, tight checking, hard forechecking, really good gapped game, and this is a great challenge to go out there and use that blueprint, and that's where we've really found success this year is 5-on-5, not really giving up a lot of chances. I think when we get ourselves in trouble, we get away from that. We create offense for the other team. So we're really looking forward to the challenge. They've got elite players up front, one of the best steammen in the league in the back end, and an unbelievable goalie in Shesterkin. So it's a great challenge for us, but one we're looking to tackle head on.
team's definitely going to need to be at their best tonight to take on the Rangers. Here's Mark Scheifele. Scheif spoke basically right around after the morning skate, as did Adam Lowry. And here's what Scheif had to say about missing Bones tonight and Scott Arniel taking over for this evening.
We went through it this year already, so we know what to expect. We know what Arnie's like. Obviously he did a fantastic job then, and it's just it also comes from everyone. Everyone's got to step up. Just like when a guy goes down, we need extra players to step up. So just need everyone to step up in his absence and just keep this thing going.
We often hear Rick talks about it. Lots of players talk about the family environment with this team, and you guys have had a lot of things this year that really put that to the test, right?
Yeah, I feel like that's what brings teams together is that stuff, and obviously we went through it before, so we know what to expect, but our focus is just on the game and let Rick take care of himself and take care of his body and get back to being healthy, and all we can do is focus on the game, play some good hockey, and have him not stress about us too much.
Yeah, well, they can certainly help out their coach, who I'm sure will be stressing just with the game and not being there, by playing well tonight and maybe coming out of MSG with 2 points. We will talk about the Rangers coming up in just a minute with an old friend of the program, Jim Cerny from Forever Blueshirts. A quick thank you to the sponsors. We'll come back and head to NYC and get ready for Jets Rangers tonight. Well, spring is just about here, gang, and our friends at Consolidated Supply are ready for a very busy spring and summer and the change of the seasons. The gang at Consolidated Supply are the leaders in irrigation systems, artificial turf, and of course, golf carts in Manitoba is the official club car dealer with incredible new and used options for you in regards to golf carts. They've also got other amazing options for your property, including hot tubs and incredible outdoor kitchens. And of course, they're also the leaders in small engine parts and repair. Consolidated Supply has so much waiting for you. Come on down and see them at their beautiful showroom, open to the public at 1395 Niagara Road East, or find out everything Consolidated Supply can do for you online at cte.ca. Our friends at Manitoba Battery are enjoying the beauty of their new location over on Dovercourt Road. It is officially open, and Donnie and his staff welcome you down at the original location at 1026 Logan, but at the new spot at 452 Dovercourt Drive. And as part of the grand opening celebrations, any battery that's normally $60 or more will save you an extra $10 if you pick it up in store. But of course, Manitoba Battery is your local option with the best prices on batteries of all makes, models, shapes, sizes, whatever you need, beating the pants off the big box stores. And of course, they will deliver to you for free any battery purchase inside the perimeter of Winnipeg over $60. It's just that easy. So head on over to manitobabattery.com or pop by and visit the fellas at the new location, 452 Dovercourt Drive, and of course the original spot at 1026 Logan Avenue. Guys, if you need to get a fresh new look as we head into spring, you know where to do that. Get on over to one of the 8 Modern Man barbershops conveniently located throughout the city of Winnipeg, including their 2 newest standalone locations on Pembina Highway or on Plessis Road. Modern Man barbershops offer a variety of grooming services, including haircuts, beard shaping, shaves, color services, and more. The easiest way to make an appointment and book your look is at modernmanbarber.com. And make sure to give them a follow on Instagram as well at Modern Man Barbershops. And we'd also have a huge thank you to the great people at Canadian Club for their continued support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. And of course, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers is the official spirit of the blue and gold. We'll be counting down the days till we're enjoying CC's at the Rum Hut and the Jim Beam Social House, and CC's and Gingers at the stands at Princess Auto Stadium. But while we wait for football to return, you'll always get the great taste of Canadian Club and all their amazing products at your local Manitoba liquor marts. Pop by today and check out the Canadian Club display. And remember, always enjoy responsibly. All right, let's head to NYC and welcome in Jim Cerny from Forever Blueshirts, covering the New York Rangers in the National Hockey League, to get ready for this one tonight. Jim, it's great to have you back on the program. How are you?
Yeah, Andrew, it's been a few years, right?
We used to do all those game day hits back in, again, a little bit more when the Jets were in the East early on, but we always loved having you on the program, and great to do it today. And I mean, I got to tell you, I mean, if you went back through Jets-Rangers matchups over the last decade, I'm not sure there'd be too many times where we'd find them both nipping at the top of the standings in the entire National Hockey League. What a matchup we've got tonight at MSG.
Yeah, I mean, this is a marquee matchup, and you're right. You know, typically when one of the teams is up, the other one is they're mediocre. You know, you don't get them both, at the top of the league at the same time. But I mean, listen, this one's going to be a good one. Rangers are banged up right now. They have two key injuries on defense. Winnipeg's going to try and exploit that. Especially, with their big guys down low. But I got to tell you, this one shapes up, to be a good one. You have two of the best goalies in the game going head to head against each other, two top-notch offenses. I mean, I'm really looking forward to this one.
You mentioned the infirmary. I guess we should start with Jacob Trouba. I mean, the team's kept on winning without him. Maybe the fans have already moved on from their captain. I'm joking, of course, but he is, I mean, such an impactful player. We know how he can change a game with the play or often a hit. But it sounds like some of the younger defensemen have really stepped up in his absence.
Yeah, it's probably in the big picture. Yeah, you probably don't want this to happen right before the playoffs. But in the big picture, Rangers have to feel pretty good about their depth heading into the postseason on the blue line. Because Zach Jones has stepped into the lineup on the third pair, and this team has not missed a beat. This is a kid that really had struggled before at the NHL level with the opportunities that he had, mainly last season. He's been a different player this year. He doesn't play a lot, only when somebody's hurt or suspended. I mean, Trouba got suspended earlier in the year. But the kid has really taken a nice leap, a nice step forward in his development. So he's been playing on the third line, and one of the third liners, Braden Schneider, a former first-round pick, has moved up to play alongside Keandre Miller in Trouba's spot. And I got to tell you, talk about not missing a beat. Those two have not only not missed a beat, but you have segments of the fan base arguing that pair is better than the Trouba-Miller pair. Now, obviously not as experienced, but they have really played well off of each other. Keandre Miller has taken it on himself, I think, to raise his game to the next level with Trouba out of the lineup. And at both ends of the ice, Miller is really playing some great hockey right now. 5 points in his last two games, 4 assists and a goal. A couple wins against Penguins and Islanders over the weekend. Be interesting to see that pair now really be the top defensive pair against an elite team tonight in the Winnipeg Jets. But no question, though, in the big picture, as I mentioned, sure, it's great, to see the Rangers prove that they have good depth defensively. But in the real big picture, when you talk about Stanley Cup playoffs and everything, Rangers are going to need Trouba's veteran presence and certainly his physical play back in that lineup.
No doubt about it. Of course, they did add Ruhwedel at the deadline, who'll be on that third pairing with Zach Jones. We haven't talked about the defense. We haven't even mentioned former Norris winner Adam Fox. But he's playing with Eric Gustafsson, which is very interesting because we've seen Gustafsson sort of bounce around. I mean, and frankly, not even playing a big role in some pretty bad teams over the last few years. I mean, he's a power play specialist. Will always get his time out there, but tell us about that pair, in particular Fox, but how Gus is doing playing, a pretty significant role in the top four.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would think, I'm not in the Winnipeg coaching room here, but, if I'm whispering in Scott Arneal's ear, I'd be like, let's get after these guys. That's really put some heavy pressure on Gustafsson and Fox. Now, Fox is a terrific all-around defenseman. And Gustafsson, I'll admit, I think he's really surprised me this year. He's played a better all-around game than I think at any point in his career. He's matured a lot in his own end. But still, he can be an adventure in his own end. His primary thing is that he's a good skater, good offensive defenseman. And, you worry about him if he's going to play heavy minutes on a top pairing there or even a second pairing, with Adam Fox. So that really is going to be key to watch. And I'm wonder if at some point, if they do shake things up a little bit and perhaps, if things aren't going well, if they move Keandre Miller up and he and Fox just take on a real 25-minute a night load, not just tonight, but on down the line. Rangers have a difficult schedule this week. So that's something certainly to keep an eye on. But I will say, Gustafsson has been much, much better all around than I anticipated when you look at his track record in the NHL. I will admit, too, that the second thing was I really thought that they should get a veteran third-pair defenseman. I really thought that they should have put in and I'm not saying they didn't put in the calls, but really try and acquire somebody like a Joel Edmondson at the deadline. I thought he would have been a nice fit. Now, obviously, the injuries play into that now, but even before the injuries, I would have liked him, would have felt more comfortable for the Rangers if they had him on the third pairing.
Jim, speaking of the deadline, I mean, they just sort of picked around it added a few depth pieces. But our old pal Jack Roslovic goes from a miserable situation in Columbus and finds himself skating with Zibanejad and Kreider on the top line tonight. I mean, tell us about the ad of Jack and how he's fit in so far and the opportunity he's getting from the coach.
Yeah, massive opportunity for Jack Roslovic. Earlier in the season in Columbus, he had played some top-line right wing. Playing top-line right wing in Columbus, a lot different than playing with Mika Zibanejad and Chris Kreider. The Rangers went into the deadline. Their number one priority was to get a top-line right wing. They really haven't had one all year, and no one that drives the play 5-on-5. And Zibanejad and Kreider, as terrific seasons as they've had all around, they struggle scoring 5-on-5, in particular Zibanejad. So they were looking for somebody to add some speed to that line, what Roslovic does, somebody that's willing to shoot. They probably would have liked a shoot-first guy more than what they get from Roslovic, but he's been a nice fit so far in 6 games. Listen, they're 5-1-0 in those 6 games, not just because of his contributions, but he's played a nice role, and he has been a nice fit there. He's a streaky guy, as you all know, in Winnipeg. And he was playing his best hockey of the season before the trade. He had 13 points in 12 games for Columbus before the trade. And that's kind of carried over here since the trade with the Rangers. But I question in the long run, Roslovic. The talent's there. You don't get it every night. With him. That's what I mentioned with him, the inconsistency. But to this point, through 6 games, he's been a really nice fit on the top line. And the Rangers, Chris Drury said after the deadline, it wasn't about getting the big the splashiest guy, maybe a Jake Gensel, a Tomas Hertl. They didn't need the big name. They just needed the right fit. Somebody that maybe could get Zibanejad in particular going 5-on-5, and they like the results so far with Jack Roslovic.
I have to laugh. I'm looking at the lines here, and it just takes us back to Winnipeg, and we've had this long, the number one debate over the course of this season amongst Jet fans is where is Nikolai Ehlers playing? And Ehlers has been on the second line for the majority of the season. He's played very well when he's been up with Mark Scheifele. And now with the add of Tyler Toffoli, that line is sort of on fire, but he has been, consistently playing at. I pull up and I realize that Artemi Panarin is 30 points clear of the next player on the Rangers in scoring. Yeah. And he's playing on what looks like the second line along with Lafreniere and Trocheck. Speak to the brilliant season that Panarin's having, but also the way Peter Laviolette's utilizing him with ice time and the fact that he's not playing on the quote-unquote number one line.
Yeah, very rarely has Peter put Panarin up top with Zibanejad on Kreider. Now, part of that is he's a left wing, Kreider is a left wing. But Panarin has switched over to the right wing at times to play on that line. But it's been very rare. He Laviolette does, that Zibanejad and Kreider are a really, really good pair together. And they do. They're amazing friends on and off the ice. They have great chemistry. They really understand each other well on the ice. So Laviolette likes to keep them together. Panarin started the season with Philip Hedl in the middle, and they moved Lafreniere, who was a left wing as well, to the right side. But the Rangers wanted to get him off the third line where Gerard Gallant had him the past 2 seasons and give Lafreniere the opportunity on the right side. And that line has really clicked. They've been together all season. Now, Hedl played the first 10 games and then sustained his upper body injury, and he's out for the season. And Trocheck moved up from the third line to take over the center role on the second line, and they haven't missed a beat. I mean, they've been terrific. You talk about chemistry. Vincent Trocheck is the perfect foil, if you will, for Artemi Panarin, as is Lafreniere. Those guys go in, they dig hard, they go to the net, they go behind the net, they win puck battles, and you're consistently looking for Artemi Panarin on that line. But the other guys have thrived as well. Lafreniere is a goal short of 20 on the season. Trocheck was an all-star this season. He's played at almost a point-a-game pace the entire year. But Panarin's the guy that drives it. The big difference with Panarin this season is he's shooting. He's always been a pass-first guy. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, he's a tremendous facilitator with the puck, one of the most skilled in the NHL. But he's such a good shot as well. And the Rangers got in his ear and said, we need more goal scoring from you. And it's become a priority for him. And here he is. He's staring down his first 40-goal season in the NHL. He's been a Hart Trophy candidate. You know, as other things may go up and down during the season, he has been tremendously consistent for them this year. And, it's kind of crazy. All the 90-point seasons he's racked up, in the NHL, he's never had a 100-point season. And I know that's that's a big milestone in the NHL these days. But I'd be hard-pressed to believe he won't get to 100 this season.
Yeah, he needs 6 more. And he's 2 away from a 40-goal season as well. And, you hear, we talk a lot about, McDavid and McKinnon, Matthews. More and more people saying, hey, don't forget about Artemi Panarin and what he's done. And you look at what the record of the Rangers is, how good they've been all season long. And there's certainly something to be said for that. Speaking of Laviolette, I mean, he's a well-traveled veteran coach. How has he affected the club so far? And what's maybe stood out for the way that he's handled this group of New York Rangers this season and the results that have followed?
Yeah, a couple things stand out, I think, with Laviolette. First of all, boy, does he handle the New York media well. He handles all the media well. But he's forthcoming. He's direct. He's an intelligent guy. You know that. He's been around the game a long time. He's well-spoken, intelligent. So he's kind of disarming in a way. He's not hiding a lot. I mean, sure, he's not giving you the full extent on injuries and things of that nature. But you don't feel like he's hiding a lot from you. And he's open. He answers questions, even the dumbest questions we can toss at him. So I think there's that aspect of it. But he comes in with respect. He's a Stanley Cup champion. He's one of the winningest coaches in NHL history. But it's how he relates to the players that I think that won them over. Right from the beginning in training camp, pulling guys aside, one-on-one conversations, both on the ice and off the ice. He's really built a rapport with this lineup and with this entire roster. Yes, his key guys, his most important guys, but all the way up and down the lineup. He communicates really, really well. So not only with us, but with his players. And I'll give you another big thing that goes into the Rangers' success this year. Mark Messier told me this years ago, 1993, when the Rangers didn't make the playoffs, the year before they won the Cup. And he said, it's tough. Hockey's a difficult game, but even the best teams have to learn from losing. They need to lose first. And so when the Rangers made the conference final 2 years ago, I'm like, you know what? They're a good team. They're going to take a step back next year. And they did. They got knocked out. They were KO'd by the Devils in the first round, right? And I think this team came back. You could have been coaching the team. I could have been coaching the team. They were coming back with a different mindset this year. And then, Peter Laviolette's also our coach. That's a guy we respect. So they came back with a different mentality. They were willing to do what the coach asked of them. And that was to change their style a little bit. They are so much tougher to play against in the neutral zone, through the neutral zone, than they have been in the past. So they have the offensive firepower. They've got a great goalie, but they're more committed to the overall 200-foot game. And defensively, they're much more responsible through the neutral zone and in their own end, much more diligent as a 5-man unit. That, to me, is the biggest difference in the New York Rangers now than the team that was very, very successful as a regular season team under Gerard Gallant and in the playoffs 2 years ago under Gallant than what they are now. And yes, it's the style of play that is preached by the coach, but it's the buy-in by the players as well, from their top players all the way down.
It's hilarious that you mentioned that. I mean, if we just took that clip and you played that clip without asking what team you were talking about, that could describe the Winnipeg Jets this season. And, the results show in the standings as to, you need that buy-in. I mean, every team has great individual players, but that commitment to defense and doing everything that it takes to win is something that separates the real contenders from the others. And I think we all agree both of these teams tonight have a good shot at making some serious noise come playoff time. Jim, tell us about Blake Wheeler's season. Obviously, it ended, unfortunately, with that gruesome injury, and a guy that had been an absolute horse, an Iron Man for Winnipeg throughout his entire time here. It seemed like he played a little up and down, but was sort of hitting his stride and feeling a little bit more comfortable in his new home before things went. How did it go with Blake? And is he still around the team at all right now? Is he rehabs? Fill us in on Wheeler. I know he's got a lot of fans here in the market.
Yeah, as well he should. Great guy, a really, really good guy, class guy, who probably has brought more to the Rangers off ice than on ice this season. And that's not knocking his play, but it's just where he is at this stage of his career. He played, I'd say probably played, if we were doing percentages, probably 65% of his time on the third line this season and the rest on the top line. He was one of those right wings that they cycled in with Zibanejad and Kreider when they were trying to find fits. Him, Capo Caco, Jimmy Vesey played up there. But Wheeler, his injury was a devastating blow to the team, and I think took some of us reporters by surprise in the fact of how hard hit the Rangers were. When they spoke about Blake Wheeler going down with that injury, it was an emotional topic for these players. Now, you don't want to see any of your teammates go down with an injury, much less a season-ending one. All the boys pull on the rope together, no matter whether it's the Rangers, Jets, any team. But I just took notice. I've seen too many guys go down with injuries, and, it's always the talk is, I feel badly, it's next man up. But this one seemed to be more personal for the Rangers, which speaks to the type individual Blake Wheeler is and the type of leader that he became in such a short amount of time with this Rangers team. I mean, Jacob Trouba is the captain. They've got a litany of alternates, Adam Fox, Chris Kreider, Mika Zibanejad, great leaders on that team. But Wheeler didn't need a letter. It's just his presence. It's the things he said behind the scenes. It's the work that he put in behind the scenes. It's how he practices. These players really, really gravitated to him as a leader. And you're right. He was playing some pretty good hockey right before he got hurt. He probably was going to slide back to the bottom six. They were always going to look for a right wing to play with Kreider and Zibanejad. That was a notch above where Blake Wheeler is at this stage of his career. But really unfortunate. And, with the injury, knocks him out for the rest of the season. Though the Rangers term it knocks him out for the rest of the regular season. But I think we'd all be surprised if he is able to come back in the playoffs. As far as being around the team, we have not seen him. I know he's in touch with the boys, but have not seen him. And, as he's going through his rehab process right now.
Jim Cerny with us, Forever Blueshirts, getting us ready for Jets and Rangers tonight, 6 o'clock Winnipeg time. The puck will drop at MSG. I cannot have you on this program without talking to you about the Rempire State Building. Matt Rempe. You've covered this team for a long time. Have you ever remembered a young man coming in and making as much noise, not just in the market, but around the league? And I guess where is he at with the team now, considering he will not be in the lineup tonight in his first game eligible coming off of the suspension? It has been he took the league by storm.
Yeah, he really has. And have I ever seen a guy come in and take New York by storm like that? There was a guy you may remember. You guys know him a little bit in Winnipeg, named Ty Domi. And I am old enough to have covered this team when Ty was the tornado that landed on Broadway. But yeah, different types of guys. And you know what? I think part of it too is, and this, the game's changed, right? We don't have a lot of Matt Rempes or Ryan Reeves.
Barely see any of that anymore. Yet he was doing it every night. Right.
That's exactly it. You just don't see that so much anymore. So I think that's part of it. He's a really appealing kid. Like, he's a really good guy, really good kid. And he's as eager, and he's like, I know he's big and strong, but he's like a big giraffe, he's kind of a little gangly. And unfortunately, that leads to him being a little bit out of control at times too with his skating, which led to that elbow to Jonas Siegenthaler's jaw that landed him a 4-game suspension. I don't think he went in there with malice intent, but he was just so out of control, wanting to make that hit, and Siegenthaler moves out of the way. Rempe throws out the elbow. It was a terrible decision. He deserved the suspension, but I don't think that was his intent. You heard Ryan Reeves talk about it after he fought him. They're talking between the glass, in the penalty boxes, not negative chirping or cursing each other out, but they're just showing respect for each other. Matt Martin, same thing in the outdoor game, the Stadium Series, when he and Rempe fought in Rempe's first NHL shift. It seems even the guys he's fighting and the guys that he's doing battle with have respect for him and get the fact it comes across that, hey, yeah, he's a pretty good kid, And yeah, the Ranger fans love him. He's a cult hero already. He's only played 10 games. Feels like he's been here for 10 years. It's only been 10 games. He scored a big goal. He scored a game-winning goal. His first NHL goal was a game winner against the Flyers on the road. He can play a little bit of hockey. He gets in on the forecheck. He's diligent defensively. He can skate for a guy that's 6'8". The Rempire State Building, as you call him. But it's going to be interesting to see when he gets back in the lineup. And Peter Laviolette did say this morning that the plan is he's got 13 forwards. He's going to make sure each of these guys is going to play heading into the playoffs so they can make their decision on who's going to be in during the first round once the playoffs start. So Rempe will get his opportunity. But when he does, what did this suspension do for him? Is he going to be a little bit more cautious? Is he going to be less carefree? Did he learn a lesson? He should have learned a lesson because he was out of control on the hit. But does it go further than that? Or is he able to slide back into just being the guy that he's been, which has been a very, very effective fourth-line player?
Hey, just before we go, Jim, and thanks again, I did want to ask you about Lafreniere. We talked about him a minute before, but listen, you get picked first overall, especially, with the junior career that he had. It comes with huge expectations. These players are very young. Is he rounding into the player that the Rangers thought they were picking when they got number one? And just maybe a quick comment on his season so far.
Yeah, I'll start with the second part. His season's been really good. It's been his best season. Now, part of that is Laviolette has shown a lot of confidence in him, whereas Gerard Gallant was really cautious with him in the past. And maybe should have been. He's still a young kid. Even though he started playing in the NHL when he was 18. But he's had a good season. Like I said, he's a goal short of 20. He's going to establish career highs in goals and points. You think when you get a number 1 overall pick, you're going to have a superstar. You think you're going to get, and I'm not lumping him in with Connor McDavid. Connor McDavid's a 1 in a million, but you think you're getting a supreme difference maker. The Devils and Jack Hughes, good example. Good recent example. Obviously Connor Bedard, who also might be a 1 in a million. And he's not quite that player. So are the Rangers getting the guy they thought they were getting? If they thought that they were getting a great player, or a great offensive player, he's probably never going to live up to that. But he has the looks of somebody that can be a good top 6 wing. Obviously, he's playing with Panarin. That helps. But good players need to play with good players, and not all good players play well with good players, right? But he does. He plays well there, and he creates a lot 5-on-5. And that's a weakness of the Rangers. A lot of times is their 5-on-5 play. He creates a lot 5-on-5. He probably doesn't convert enough, and that's part of the issue with him. But, he's a willing guy. He goes in, he'll take the body, he gets in on the forecheck, he does the right things, he's committed defensively. But if you're asking, is he going to be the star that you expect the number 1 overall pick to be? My answer would have to be no, I don't think he's going to be that guy. I think he'll be a very good NHL player. And I think you can win a Stanley Cup with a guy like that in your top 6. It's not too much different from, the same type of scrutiny Capo Kakko is under as the number 2 overall pick the year Jack Hughes went number 1. He has really struggled to find his stride. And, he's a 3rd-line player for the Rangers, and he's blocked, with Lafreniere moving to right wing. Kakko's now blocked moving up there. He got his chance on the top line, didn't really take. So, it's tough. You draft a guy number 1, number 2. They had that, you get Lafreniere and Kakko in consecutive drafts. You think, boy, we are set forever. And instead, now you're saying, well, okay, Lafreniere is what he is, really good, good player. Kakko, contract year. Are we really going to give him $4.5 million, dollars, because of where he is in his career now? And, it's that next contract. Boy, Rangers have some big decisions to make there. And I only bring Kakko into it because it's not dissimilar to Lafreniere. I think Lafreniere is the better player for sure, the better all-around player. But yeah, just because you're number 1 overall doesn't mean you're going to be a superstar. And I don't think he's going to be that.
That's interesting. I'm just looking. I mean, Kakko has basically the same numbers, maybe just slightly less than Morgan Barron does, who will be looking forward to play his old teammates tonight. Yeah. It should be a great one. Jim, thanks so much for the conversation. Folks, if you want more on the Blueshirts, go to Forever Blueshirts. You can check out all of Jim's work and the rest of the team there. Thanks so much. Let's do this again sometime and enjoy what should be a great one tonight at MSG.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. Love talking puck with you.
Thanks so much. Jim Cerny, Forever Blueshirts, with us on Winnipeg Sports Talk as we get ready for the main event tonight, 6 p.m., Jets and the New York Rangers. We're going to spend more time talking about the Jets. We actually also got a clip from Scott Wheeler, our old pal, who was on with another friend of ours, Alex Adams, on Rucker McGroarty's situation after their big win against Minnesota on the weekend. We'll get to that, talk about it, and many more Jets storylines with Jeff Hamilton coming up in just a minute. But first, a quick thanks to our sponsors, and then we'll bring in a hammer on WST. I want to extend a huge thanks to the great people at Princess Auto for their support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Of course, Princess Auto, proudly founded right here in Winnipeg and committed to Winnipeg with their headquarters, national headquarters right here, not only supporting Winnipeg Sports Talk, but all of our local teams, including the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, as they welcome fans to Princess Auto Stadium this year to cheer on the blue and gold down at the U of M. Princess Auto, of course, is the place where you'll find the best deals on the most incredible and unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. Pop by and see them in store on Panet Road or Portage Avenue West. And you can always shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. We also want to thank the folks at Wallace & Wallace. Speaking of getting ready for spring, you know Wallace & Wallace are the fencing and overhead door specialist. You'll see their fences and trucks all over the city. And for all of your fencing needs, Wallace & Wallace has you covered. What you might not know is that they're also the overhead door specialist in Winnipeg, with the largest selection in Manitoba as the Clopay dealer here in town. They can also help you, though, with your maintenance, with the crazy weather, getting cold, getting warm again. This is the time to prevent downtime going into the new seasons. Give Wallace & Wallace a call to book your maintenance and inspection service call today. For residential and commercial overhead door sales and service, there's only one name or two you need to know. That is Wallace & Wallace. And speaking of the change of the seasons, fellas, I think a lot of you may be looking into the closet and realize it might be time to up that menswear game. Well, whether you need a suit for a particular event or just want to upgrade your workwear and more, F Apparel is the spot. Just an incredible selection of custom menswear waiting for you, starting with suits beginning at $400, along with chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and an amazing selection of menswear accessories. If you are getting married or in a wedding party coming up this summer, make sure to talk to the fellas at F about a 15% discount when the entire wedding party gets your suits at F Apparel. They've also got great deals for high school grads as well, so make sure to talk to the guys at F about that. Pop by and see them, 190 Smith Street downtown. You can also find out more online or make an appointment at F. That's EPHapparel.com. And as we look ahead to spring and summer, I am counting down the days to fishing season. And you know on Winnipeg Sports, when we're talking fishing, we're getting fired up to head back to Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge. A one-of-a-kind, incredible fly-in fishing experience right here in Manitoba, where you can be on the water in less than 2 hours from the city of Winnipeg. And as incredible as the world-class fishing is that awaits guests at Aikens Lake, the hospitality of the Aikens team and the Terren family is even better. Head on over to aikenslake.com, find out more about everything available at Aikens coming up, and you can contact them as well about pricing and availability options and booking dates for the 2024 fishing season. aikenslake.com online, and make sure to check them out on all their social channels at Aikens Lake. All right, let's continue the convo with our pal Jeff Hamilton of the Winnipeg Free Press. Hammer, what's going on? Good to have you back on the program.
Yeah, I don't know what's left, what's right. This is Tuesday. Is it Monday? I know I made room for Mike to work in his schedules. He works hard on the road, so usually ask me how the weekend is, but my week's already started, so not too bad, man. Pretty good.
Well, and we're all dealing with this damn flu that never seems to completely end. I mean, you've been sort of messed up by it as well. And yeah, I'm like, what day is it? Is it 1 o'clock yet? Is the show? And then just we move on from there.
I figured that was your morning meetings. Get together around 12:45. Because let's face it, that's your morning, and then you kind of be like, what are we doing today? And then the magic
lock shop gets in the way of that. We do usually have to do that a little earlier in the AM.
I kid. You're up earlier. We talk in the morning too.
Hey, listen. I want to talk hockey and Jets in this game tonight and moving forward, but I know that you were this morning at the Kelsey McKay hearing right now, and you, of course, will be reporting for this on the Free Press. For maybe just give people that may be unaware of what we're talking about a quick background on this and where we're at and what you learned and what came out today in court.
Yeah, so I'll correct you a little bit on the beginning. My colleague Dean Pritchard will be covering it for the Winnipeg Free Press, our court reporter. I was just there for I was there for a couple different reasons. Obviously,
You've written on this before, though, and this is
extensively. I did a whole investigation on it a year and a half ago when it kind of first came out. So I just wanted to be there for those proceedings. Obviously, I cover a lot of this kind of stuff, so I wanted to be there for. I've never actually been in person for victim impact statements, which a few were made today. You know through your interviews and this agreed statement of facts. You got to hear all that kind of today, and so I was there to. Kind of do a bit of like obviously what do you call it, like a wraparound coverage of everything, but also I wanted to be there for support of the victims and the families that were in attendance, people who I've of course have looked into. They've been the inspiration of why I've looked into it. So I wanted wanted to be there for support and just see how the proceedings went. But it was it's a 2-day process. It concludes tomorrow, where the defense will have their opportunity. Today was obviously the victims' opportunities and the Crown to make their case in what they believe Kelsey McKay, who was charged, I think it was total 11 counts with 9 former players. At least 9 former players came forward, and they're asking for 25 years. So we'll see what happens. Sentencing won't come this week. That will. I imagine the judge will have to deliberate and go through, what he's heard over the last 48 hours.
Pleading guilty? He's
already pleaded guilty.
Okay,
yeah. This isn't a trial. This isn't like this is essentially you make your case for what the sentence should be. So Kelsey McKay's already admitted to his charges, 11 in total. And this is kind of the. It's interesting because one of the biggest as and the coverage of Graham James in the past, one of the biggest things is you didn't really get to you didn't get that trial, so you don't get you get in this case and the same way with the Graham James case, you get the victims who if they want to, the victims' families get a chance to share some of their feelings, how it's affecting them, how it continues to affect them, and that's important information. And of course, pleading guilty is as I mentioned, is agreed upon facts of the matter. So there is some closure to a certain degree for the victims to know that their perpetrator has admitted to their crimes, right? But the lack of a trial, kind of in a way, I don't want to frame it this way, but like almost kind of lets everybody else off the hook, right? Outside of the perpetrator and the victim, right? Anybody who may have known something, who may have not done anything, and so that's what you don't get out of a trial. But these trials, when they do happen, are very difficult. They're very challenging. In some cases, they're difficult to prove. In this case, just judging by the agreed statement of facts, there was lots of proof here. And my heart goes out to the victims. And
how many victims spoke?
Just one, actually. One of the victims, unfortunately, lost his life. Since he died of an overdose related to obviously the pain and issues that he was dealing with. So he had some family members speak on his behalf. But yeah, just one player spoke at a podium. Yeah.
Well, it's important to not just we pled guilty and move on. So I appreciated you being there and wanted to just quickly touch on that.
I appreciate talking about
before we got to the fun stuff, talking about the things that we love about sports, and that of course is a huge game tonight. We last week we were kind of speaking, as well as on deadline day, about the moves that Kevin Cheveldayoff had made. In particular, bringing in Tyler Toffoli.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're now, not quite 2 weeks into Tyler Toffoli's tenure as a Jet, and the early results are very, very good. Multiple point games for all the players on his line last game, 2 goals on Friday night, and an incredible acknowledgement and welcome from Winnipeg fans. It was reported last night by Elliot Friedman in speaking, presumably with Kevin Cheveldayoff at the general manager meetings, that they do expect Gabriel Velarde back, and that is big. But this addition to Tyler Toffoli, I mean, you knew the sort of player you were getting. Sometimes it doesn't happen right away. he has been everything the team was hoping for when they traded those picks to the New Jersey Devils.
Yeah, and how sweet does it feel when it does? He was, to your point, he was brought on as a trigger-happy, goal-scoring guy who is also a team guy, and I think that's a big reason why he gets, he's had a lot of action with trades, is that he's a valuable player who brings more than just the goal scoring. He brings, obviously experience. He's won a Stanley Cup, but that camaraderie that the Jets have, essentially built this season or built upon this season is only getting added by a guy like Tyler Toffoli in the mix. And to see him, perform the way he has, to finish the way that he has, I don't think anybody is shocked by any stretch of the imagination, just knowing that this guy was on the cusp of getting 30 goals. But for him to deliver the way he has, I think they're, if they are surprised, I think they're pleasantly surprised. So this is, just like Sean Monahan. It didn't take long for him to make his presence known, and looking at that trio now, that's, you see some smiles in those games. Mind you, it's against some pretty, not so great competition, but you still need to finish when those things happen. I look at that three-way passing play between Monahan, Nikolai Ehlers, finding him in the slot there, and it's on his tape for what, half a second before he's wiring it past. That's the kind of chemistry that you hope for in the weeks, if not months, after the trade deadline. To see some of that come through in just games is certainly bodes well for a Winnipeg Jets team that's holding on to top spot in the Central at this moment.
And listen, he had 4 goals on the weekend. The play that I think speaks to just how well he's gelled with his new line mates was that ridiculous between the legs pass that he put out that ended up in the back of the net as well. And you're right. Maybe you can get away or try some of those things more against the teams that they were playing. But that line's feeling pretty good heading into tonight's game, and that'll be important as they try to really carry this momentum into this stretch with first place on the line. The other part of that, and what's funny, we just had Jim Cerny on, and we're talking about the Rangers and the season that they've had right now, and you look at Artemi Panarin, who is playing on their second line, and I asked him about that, and he said Laviolette, for the most part, has kept him there. He's brought him up a couple times, moved over onto the right side with Zibanejad and Kreider, but what's happening right now with that Monahan, Ehlers, Toffoli line is exactly what they hoped that they could put together for, call it what you want, 1A, 1B lines, but a line that gets the most out of Nikolai Ehlers and hopefully, maintains the scoring that Kyle Connor's doing with Mark Scheifele up the top line. You'd love for that line to maybe give up a little less, and that's a conversation that continues. But for what they were looking to get when Tyler Toffoli came here, he has brought it all and more. And to your point, you look at, all we can take is, very limited clips from the locker room and his interviews. He seems to be having fun. He's fit in very well, and you can tell he's already a very popular member of this team.
Well, it's hilarious, right? Because how quickly narratives can change. It wasn't that long ago that this team had no second line. That they couldn't find anyone to gel with Nikolai Ehlers and have a line that was able to take some pressure off the top line, and I would argue take some pressure off the third line too, because the third line's job is to prevent the goals, to shut down the other team's top line. But when you only have one line going and the second line, it seems to be a revolving door of players and finding a little consistency. That pressure applies to the Lowry line again, right? And so but anyways, to finish off the thought, you go from talking about having no second line to now talking about having a 1A and 1B and the difficulties in determining who's what. That's a good problem to have. So I think that's the fear, I guess, or concerns that exist with every trade deadline, is that you want to bring in talent, you want to bring in, you want to reward your players, and certainly the Winnipeg Jets deserve to be rewarded this season. But you want to bring in the right player, and you want to bring in a player who is going to gel with you. It's going to, understand your room, understand your game plan, understand your goals. And it looks like, I don't know if the Jets could get 2 better guys in Sean Monahan and obviously Tyler Toffoli. So, I think those are home runs, right? We'll see what happens here. There's certainly a stiff test this evening against a really good Rangers club. So we'll see what happens with with that chemistry. I wouldn't be quick to dismiss it if for whatever reason things don't work out tonight. But it's certainly, as far as early signs go, these guys are checking off all the boxes on the ice and off of it.
Hammer, when we look at this team, and as I said, we expect that Gabriel Velarde, or the team expects that Gabriel Velarde will be back at some point.
Mm-hmm.
They have put it, and Kevin Cheveldaev deserves a lot of credit for a lot of things that he's done, particularly over the last year, from deadline to deadline, and setting this team up. What I think was maybe understated with having New Jersey eat 50% of the salary and having him on the books for just over $2.1 million, and having the Monahan acquisition taking care of the center position, but doing it less than $2 million, is that they're in an incredible cap situation where they can handle the Perfetti bonuses, which are expected to come.
Yep.
But they also have room to potentially add Rutger McGroarty. I'm going to play this clip for you right now. This is from our pal Alex Adams, Behind the Play podcast. He had Scott Wheeler on recently, and I know Alex is a regular, having the Winnipeg Ties, watches this program.
I know
quite
Alex
a bit,
well. His father taught me TV.
Is he? That's right. That's right.
Yeah,
He's a prof out there. So
so I know both.
He comes by it honestly. But we'll touch on McGroarty in a second here. But this was Scott Wheeler, who talked to Alex. This is first. Alex just asking Scott about Wheeler, about Rutger McGroarty and where he's at. Of course, they had the big win, an upset win over the Gophers in the playoffs on the weekend.
Any chance that McGroarty's ready for the playoffs, or is that too much of a stretch?
It's interesting. I think he is, but the more and more I hear about it, the more and more it sounds like he's staying. I've heard both from people at Michigan who think he's staying, and also people around the NHL who think he's staying, which is actually kind of surprises me. Because players in his situation, he's one of the best players in college, one of the best forwards in college hockey right now. Players in that situation who are that good at that level typically like to stay or like to graduate now, and especially for the monetary reason as well, right? You're giving up money the longer you stay in college. So that's interesting to me. The other part of it, though, is I think he might be the captain of that Michigan team next year, and I think he wants to win a national championship there. And he had the injury that he punctured his lung on a really, really tough play earlier in the year that sidelined him right until the World Juniors. So it hasn't really been a full season for him. And I just don't think he's in a rush, and he knows that it's kind of crowded right now with the Jets forward group with some of the moves they've made, especially if they re-sign Toffoli, right? So I think he's starting to look at returning to Michigan as the best option.
So while I don't like what Scott just said, we have to acknowledge it. Now, I will say this. I'm sure if you talk to Jets people, they'll feel like there's a better chance of McGroarty leaving than if you talk to Michigan people. But from everything that we know about Rutger, I can see him absolutely loving every second of being a Michigan Wolverine. Of life, exactly. And I don't think that's going to change when he turns pro. But for a guy that I think absolutely would be on the table to, as Scott said, be a player potentially for this team come playoff time, it'll be a very difficult decision, I'm sure, for him. But it was interesting kind of hearing that, maybe pouring a bit of cold water on the fact that, some people have said before that his signing would be imminent after the season, and certainly sounds like it's a little bit more up in the air. Certainly talking to Scott.
Yeah, I don't even know, not to add more cold water to it, but I don't know what the positive is for Winnipeg in that. I don't, okay.
The comment or the scenario?
No, just the potential situation where he stays in Michigan. I'm not saying that that's the case. We don't know that to be the case. I'm not questioning Scott's sources per se, but he's having conversations. Whatever, just the idea. And so let's just say they're conversations right now. Well, what if you're the Winnipeg Jets? You're looking at a pretty stacked team. You don't know, you got all these forwards that you like, and, you want to fit in, and maybe you want to save Rutger McGroarty for another year, right? Because if he comes up this season, correct me if I'm wrong, he burns a year of his,
but the only thing that changes is that he's 1 year closer to coming out of his ELC.
No, that's what I mean.
It doesn't change when he can become a UFA.
No. I'm
So
sure.
So I mean, you're going to have to pay him more sooner if that's the case. So I think they'd be more than happy to do that.
Right. You'd hope so, but the Jets. Sorry, man. Did we forget that the Jets are? Sorry, I didn't know the Jets were flush with cash right now. So who knows what savings they may or may not be good. But what I'm saying is that like
they don't have $20 million unspent
maybe
on their salary cap.
Maybe Rutgers camp hears that they're maybe thinking of not calling up, or they're debating, and maybe anyways, maybe it's a war of words that we're just randomly throwing out here, because this is the first I've heard of it after this clip. Because the Winnipeg Jets, like, I don't know how you're Rutger McGroarty have the year that you had. I get it, the injury sucks, but like, what are you trying to preserve here? Like, your reputation is still very much intact. This city loves you. Like, the Winnipeg Jets can't wait to have you. Like, this is a team that's potentially going to have a deep run in the Stanley Cup playoffs, and not just this season, but their window remains open depending on what they can do next season. So I go back to my original point. I don't know what the benefit for a guy like Rutger McGroarty is if by staying another year in Michigan, unless you really want that college lifestyle, unless you promised your parents you get a degree or something and you want to get closer to that. But like, to me, I think it's, I don't know. I think that's ridiculous. And if he did stay another year, I would be concerned as a Jets organizer. I wouldn't be panicking, but I'd be like, okay, like, that's okay. Then what after next season? Is it 1 year away from choosing whatever you want for whatever you want? Or is it, I mean, that's
again, that's taking away though a year of your NHL career.
No, exactly.
Even doing it 1 year, doing it 2 years. Like I'm not.
That's at the top of my list of ridiculous, man.
Yeah.
If you want you in the NHL, get that year, Bert. Get paid sooner. Come in. People are going to welcome you with open arms. I think there's potential for
the Jets will be ready to do that. I have no doubt that if he comes and signs, they'll say we will get you in a game, and then I think the other part is the carrot of look at this team that we've got right now. We are focused on doing damage in the Stanley Cup playoffs, and we're not promising you a spot in the top 6 or anything like that, but there's a very good chance that you will be able to contribute and get right into it and going forward. Here's one more clip, and this isn't much more about the decision, but this is Scott Wheeler's, who watches a lot of Rutger McGroarty, has followed him, has always been a big fan of him, on what type of difference Rutger might make for the Winnipeg Jets and contributions if he does sign at the end of his season this year.
If he does sign, I think he can play. I think he can play. I'm not sure whether he'll play every day in the playoffs, but I wouldn't be surprised if once Michigan's done with their push, and they still have a Big Ten championship game coming up against Michigan State. Once that season's over, I wouldn't be surprised if he does sign, if he gets a good long look in the regular season, and then he's either down to Manitoba to play in the AHL playoffs with the Moose, or he sticks around kind of thing and is a black ace.
All right, so there's Scott Wheeler. It is interesting because, I mean, even if this wasn't a possibility, you look at the way this team is built, and assuming that Gabriel Velarde's back, and you can make an argument, certainly up front, it's the deepest and best 1 to 12 forward group that the team's had, including the 17-18 playoff run. And then the thought of a guy coming in, and in that circumstance, like, I really do think it's best case scenario for the Jets if they get him in towards the end of this season with all the excitement heading into the playoffs. He can play a game or two, and they get a chance to make a decision as to whether a guy that is going to be a huge part of their future, presumably, might be able to help right now. And listen, that might ruffle a feather or two of guys that have been here throughout. But as we all know, come playoff time, everything is on the table, and it's put your best unit out there and give yourself the best chance to win. And I don't rule out that he could be part of that equation.
I'm not ruling it out either. I said this on your show months ago, if not weeks ago. I think he could be. Look, no one's expecting him to be lighting it up or whatever, but I think just, first of all, he's a man. So, like, he's built for the NHL game. Secondly, he brings an incredible amount of energy. Like, what would be the harm on, assuming that he's, you've evaluated him and he's up to speed and he's getting the systems down and whatnot. And, you hope that there's some time allotted for that. but put that energy in. This guy just played a college season. He isn't at the end of an 82 gamer. He's at this guy was injured for part of it too. I think he's riding high. I think he could certainly. Couldn't you just picture him, man, potting goals in the playoffs on that fourth line as the Jets continue to go in? Like, why? Like, who would be against that? I just, again, I think to your first point though, is a pretty good team, and so there are going to be guys. It's going to be a tough decision wherever you put him on the up wherever in the lineup, right? It's going to have a ripple effect. But there's injuries, there's inconsistencies. I mean, we'll see what happens, right? There's potential, and no one's hoping for it, but there's potential for things to go not so great, over the next month or so. Someone could be injured. We don't know what Velarde's situation is. There's the assumption or reports that he, they expect him back, but this guy was day to day forever, right? So, injuries, take that with a grain of salt. So I just, again, I go, whether he's, lighting it up on the fourth line, playing all right on the fourth line, hanging out with the big club through what would be in a really exciting time for the organization and for him, I just can't see a benefit, outside of obviously winning a national championship. I mean, that's an important milestone, an important goal for players, particularly Americans. But at the same time, I mean, NHL is the dream, and going on a Stanley Cup run, that would be probably just as, if not more special than any national championship.
Hey, let me ask you just before we go about the Central. And I mean, we go into the action tonight, and the Jets, Avs, and Stars are all in a dead heat at 91 points. The Jets do have the benefit of 2 games in hand on Dallas and 1 game in hand on Colorado. Mm-hmm. When you look at that group of teams, and I mean, I guess you can always say the best case scenario is you win the division and those teams beat the hell out of each other for 7 games. And, listen, the Nashville Predators are no joke right now. And assuming,
last time I checked, the Vegas Golden Knights aren't going to be garbage come April. So
well, definitely not. I still think that Vegas and LA are tied. They have the exact same points, exact same games. Mm-hmm. I still believe that Vegas will get 3rd place and will take on the Edmonton Oilers in the first round, presumably. And the Kings have been sort of up and down. I mean, the Kings, kind of funnily enough, might be the best matchup of all of them, and that's still a team that is not going to be an easy out. But what do you make of the challenges from Dallas? Like, head-to-head, the Jets have had a harder time with Dallas this year. But you dig in a little bit more, the struggles that Ottinger has had, not against Winnipeg, but other teams. And the fact that, they added Chris Tanev, they've got Stankoven, who's been a great addition. But, man, I mean, I've been watching the Avs for the last couple of weeks post-deadline, and that game on Saturday night against the Oilers, I mean...
They're the scariest team in the NHL.
They are scary. So I guess the question is, do the Avs scare you more than the Dallas Stars, even though the Jets are 0-3 against Dallas this year head-to-head?
Yeah, I just think Colorado is dangerous. And, these teams, whether it's the Colorado Avalanche, the Vegas Golden Knights, they know when it matters. I'm not saying that any team can
got the rings to show for
turn a switch on or whatnot, but they know they know when it matters, and that's a tough division.
The Avs have turned on that switch already. If you've watched them at all lately, it is fully engaged right now.
Yeah, and Nathan McKinnon is leading that leading that ship with an incredible season. So I wouldn't want to be. I honestly think, Huss, like I think many people think, it feels like a pick your poison. I mean. Yeah. You got to beat good teams to win the Stanley Cup. You look at last season, right? It was like, it was so awesome that the Winnipeg Jets were able to dodge the Edmonton Oilers and were, to many people's belief, were matched up much better with the Vegas Golden Knights. And we saw
one game that seemed to be true.
Yeah, totally. After 5, not so much.
No, not so much.
But I just think, I think the Jets I think they're built too. And that's what I think this playoffs is going to be awesome. That's why the Central Division is going to be so awesome, because the Jets are built to be a good team as well. They have the tools. They have the goaltending. I mean, Connor Hellebuyck's been playing amazingly. They have the defense is playing above what anyone expected of them this season. They're finding their scoring touch. I mean, this is a group that, when healthy, is I would say as good as anyone in the Central. And so, while the results aren't there for Dallas and Colorado is a scary team, the Jets need to find their mojo here, right? They need to find their rhythm and momentum going into the playoffs, and they got time to do it. And I think that the fact that they're in a battle for first in the Central and arguably the West is going to keep them engaged. It's going to keep this group engaged. They're not going to be backing into the playoffs. They're going to be up against it, knowing that their reward is to not play the Dallas Stars or the Colorado Avalanche in the first round. So if that's not a big enough carrot, if you will, to fight to the death down this final stretch of the season, I don't know what is. But again, we have to wait and see, and only time will tell where they end up. But the Jets are in a great position. They're in first place. They what, as you hear in every sport, control their destiny right now. And if and that's a good place to be with 15 games or so left in a regular season.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this. I mean, just finishing this off, a great opportunity for the Jets to make a bit of a statement tonight at MSG. Their recent performances against a few of the teams that have been in the playoffs have been kind of underwhelming. I mean, a dud last week against the Predators where they were just completely off. And as Rick Bowness said, in his opinion, the worst game in 2 years against the Canucks. Before they'd had some good wins, but building off those two convincing wins against a couple of the doormats of the league tonight, I think would be a very good sign for this team and bode very well going into the rest of this road trip against New Jersey, the Islanders, and Washington, all the definition of desperate hockey clubs right now, still with faint playoff hopes, although Washington now barged in somehow with a minus 27 goal differential after their win last night.
I think the NHL record for playoff team is minus 24 goal differential to make it into the playoffs. So that would be pretty special for Washington if they could.
Can we all agree that we don't need to expand the playoffs?
Yeah, I think that's Exhibit A. But yeah, I mean that's what I mean. Like I think you look at the games and the stats don't lie. The stats don't lie. That the Jets haven't secured 2 points. They haven't secured 2 points more often than they have. Over good teams, but they're beating the bottom dwellers. But if you look at I say this all the time, Huss, and as a big bettor, in sports, like, standings don't really dictate results. Like you look up and down, go look at the last week. You're going to have really good teams lose to, really bad teams on paper. Right. And so while it's not an incredibly impressive dominance over two bottom dwellers, it's still impressive nonetheless. And I think, these are going to be stiff tests. I mean, the Jets know it. They understand they need to play better against better competition. And let's see if they can't get it done here. They're certainly going to have a healthy dose after the New York Rangers, who have obviously did their damage at the trade deadline. They've been playing some good hockey. And then, as you mentioned, it's desperate city after that. And desperate city, creates, desperate teams, which creates high intense games, teams that know that every game matters, and the Jets need to have that mentality. As much as you'd want to say, look, you're well compensated, this is this important time of the year. Sometimes it's hard to get up for game 60 something of 82, and so I think these teams aren't going to let the Jets off the hook. And couple that obviously with what we were talking about before, and that that absolute battle in the Central Division and what the result will be if you don't finish in first place. And again, I go back to there is not a shortage of motivation for this Winnipeg Jets team. It's staring them right in the face. It's now on them to deliver.
Yeah, well, they've earned a great spot. The general manager's done his job. It's time to finish the job in the regular season and get ready for whoever awaits in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Hammer, always great having you on the program. Have a good one. I hope you're feeling better as well, and we'll talk to you next week.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on, and we'll do it all again next week. We'll be even doing it twice in a week, because if I am back on Monday, that's 2 times in 7 days. We'll have to maybe revisit my contract, but we'll talk about it later. Anyways, thanks for having me on.
Talk to my people.
Exactly.
Thanks so much. There's Jeff Hamilton. And you know what I'm seeing? It's interesting. There's some a comment just back to the Rucker McGroarty thing. About the Jets needing to do everything they can to sign him. Make no mistake about it. They absolutely will. This is an organization, and Kevin Cheveldayoff said, you got to respect where the player is right now, focusing in on what's ahead of him, and that's these playoff games right now. The second that is done, the full court press will be on, and I'm still optimistic they get it done. But here, it's a perfect why not question of the day for Not Autocorp over at Waverly and McGillivray. Yes or no? Do you think Rucker McGroarty signs with the Winnipeg Jets this season at the end of the Michigan year? Let us know in the chat right there. Now, we will get to the Coolbet lines. It's a busy night in the National Hockey League. But coming up in just a minute, we have a great interview with A.K. Gassama of the U of M Bisons, the lone Manitoban at the CFL Combine, which gets going in Winnipeg tomorrow. I think you're going to really enjoy this conversation. We've got that coming up in just a second after a quick thanks for Winnipeg Sports Talk sponsors. And as we get ready for the playoffs and the playoff excitement increases, do not forget, Winnipeg Jet fans, that you can get priority access and count yourself in for the entire 2024 playoffs right now by putting down a deposit on season tickets or ticket packages for the upcoming 2024-2025 season. Head on over to winnipegjets.com/deposit. Full list of the benefits of being a season ticket member or ticket package holder for the upcoming seasons there, map and pricing and more. And if you do it now, you will be in the same seat for all of the whiteouts down at Canada Life Centre, hopefully for a long and very fun playoff run for the Winnipeg Jets. Again, right now, the We're All In campaign continues. It's winnipegjets.com/deposit for more on that. And while speaking of the playoffs, probably a trip down to Royal Sports is going to be necessary as everyone gets their whites ready for the Winnipeg Jets and whoever they're playing come April. There is simply no better sports store anywhere than Royal Sports. And if you're a Winnipeg Jet fan, thousands of pieces of Jets merchandise, whites and otherwise, all of the jerseys, and still plenty of time to get your jersey customized with your favorite player, name, number, just in time for the postseason. So much more than just Jets merch as well, though, at Royal. Tons of Bomber gear, Major League Baseball, with Jays starting up right now, NFL and more. The biggest hockey section in town, all of the spring sports loading in by the day, and tons of cool stuff on the Kings skate, snow, and surf side. Pop by and see it for yourself. Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway. And make sure to give them a follow on Instagram at Royal Sports Pembina for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. And speaking of those playoffs, I mean, if you're not in the building or the team is on the road, you know the best place to get together with your gang to watch the big game is your local Boston Pizza. All the Jets games on the big screen with big sound, not to mention those ice-cold schooners, world-famous BP wings, gourmet pizzas, and some great new treats on the BP appetizer menu. There's simply nothing like getting together at your local BP. And if you are staying at home, though, you can get the great taste of Boston Pizza by ordering online at bostonpizza.com.
You train day in and day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
All right, CFL Combine is here in the Peg this week. All 9 CFL teams will be poking and prodding all the prospects for the upcoming CFL draft. And one member of the University of Manitoba Bisons is looking to make a name for himself and boost that draft stock. And A.K. Gassama joins us right now as he gets ready for the CFL Combine. A.K., it's great to have you on Winnipeg Sports Talk. How are you?
I'm doing great. Feeling good. Spirits are high, and I'm grateful. So thank y'all for having me on the show. Really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. I mean, being a former Bison guy myself, always love following the squad. Knew you were going to be here, so it is great to have you on it. Listen, because we're a Winnipeg show, you've got such an interesting story. I mean, before we talk about what's happening with you right now with the Combine and, your professional prospects, give our listeners a little bit of an idea about the crazy path that took you to Winnipeg and the Bisons. I mean, you were born in Sierra Leone and came here at 4 years old?
Yep. Little baby.
Fill us in and just come into Winnipeg, ending up here with your family, how you got here, and growing up, and really, at what point were you even introduced to football?
For sure. We came as refugees here. During that time in the late 90s, early 2000s, so Sierra Leone was going through a civil war. So, my dad and my mom, they were, just had me, my two older brothers. So I was the youngest at that time. We came here. We had my little sister. They had my little sister. So, just like, I feel this story it's a familiar one, especially if you're Canadian, especially being from Winnipeg. A lot of newcomers, we escape situations like Civil War. And my dad, you don't really have a choice. The only thing that we knew about Winnipeg is that there was already an established community of Sierra Leonean people here. So the biggest thing for them was like, familiarity. Like, I always think about it, like, not even more for us, but for my parents, like, you go from one environment one day and then you're a completely different world the next day. So, you go through those struggles, and, coming here to Winnipeg, we lived on Kennedy Street for a number of years here. And, that's inner city. That's where a lot of immigrants are. Winnipeg is an amazing city, but we know that it has its times and it has its rough parts. And, there's a lot of things that are going on in the inner city just because you're exposed to such a different environment, right? Everybody is doing this and that, and having 3 boys, my parents were really, really diligent on making us sure that I had correct guidance. So, growing up, there was a lot, we started off and there in the inner city, and then my grandpa, who I call my grandpa here, he was already here in Winnipeg. And when we first came to the city, he really, he's not my blood grandpa, but I don't see him any other way. There's no, blood doesn't really make it any closer. So he had advised my mom and my dad, like, you got 3 boys and, living in the inner city, Winnipeg, you guys are working. It's going to be good that if you guys try to find maybe just, step out of there. So we ended up moving into Manitoba housing in St. Vital. So that was another side of the city. And, same thing though, you're in public housing, you're dealing with the different situations. But as a kid, I didn't really know what, these situations meant. I was just a kid, right? But, you're exposed to so many different things. I had, close friends of mine who, at a young age, were in and out of the system. I had cousins who ended up being deported. I had, in 2018, I lost one of my big brothers who we grew up with. He was murdered and he was left in the Red River. And, there were so many different situations, so many different things that you see growing up. And I guess, it might be trauma, but for me, it was always, we get to it, football and sports and athletics that just kept me on a straight path. Like, when you play sports, I started playing basketball and track first. My brothers, they were all basketball players, soccer players. So when I was younger, I used to go with my brother to the gym. My brother had crazy hoop dreams. He wanted to make it to the NBA. So, being his little brother, I looked up to him. So when he would go up at like 6 a.m, 7 a.m. before school, he'd bring me with me, especially because my parents were working, right? Like my mom and dad were working, for like 4 jobs in between them. So, we just go. And my brother, he's 9 years older than me. So he was also like another parent for me. So, growing up, I was just wherever he's at, I'm going, chasing the hoop dreams with him. So, if he's shooting, I'm passing him the ball, I'm getting my shots in. And, we loved Kobe Bryant growing up. That was kind of our guy. So, we were like, you know that you got to work if you want to get what you want, no matter where you are, just work. And so that kind of started for me with the sports and athletics. And it wasn't until around 4th grade when, my best friend at that time, his dad started coaching the Fort Garry Lions, our local program here in the South End. And he's like, you know what, AK, like, man, you should come out and play football. Like, you're really athletic. And we played football every single day at lunchtime, right? And during lunchtime or during recess, they play Saturday, Sunday. So I'd always be hearing about, this drama is going on with the Mustangs, or this is going on Transcona. And I'm just like, man, what y'all talking about? Like, this is, everyone dissing, and it's like our league's better than the next. So eventually I was just like, okay, you know what? Like, I'm going to go play football. So I remember I go to my dad. I'm like, Dad, I want to go play football. And so, mind you, my dad, he played soccer at a very high level when he was younger in Sierra Leone. You know, he was national recognition. You know, athletes were in my family. So when I told my dad, hey, I'm going to go play football, he's like, what? Okay, yeah, like, I'm good. I'm getting ready to go coach you. He's like, okay. He's like, I'll make sure that you know, learn. I'm like, Dad, I'm talking about American football here, because he thought I was talking about soccer.
For sure.
And, you know, he's like, oh, I'm like, American football? He's like, is that like the rugby where they – and I'm like, yeah, Dad. Like, you know, I play this all the time when I was like, okay, like, this is like, he's thinking this is a crazy sport. Like, you guys are just running into each other, doing all these crazy things. And, you know, he's like, but he saw how excited I was, you know, and my friend's father, Coach Parrott, he was such adamant, you know, about me just getting out of these sports. So, you know, we went and went to go pick up my equipment. You know, I remember still, rest in peace to the late Jim Duncan, you know, such a huge part of our community in the Fort Garry Lions football field. He went and like filled up like air in my helmet. My dad's like, what is going on? Like, this is such a weird sport, like, you know, such a complete different culture shock. But from that time on, that's when I really started playing football. And, you know, I fell in love with the game. You know, growing up, I had a lot of energy, you know, and I had a lot of, you know, emotion that like I'd always just keep within me. So when I found football, it was such a perfect sport to just go and be me. And from there, it was kind of, you know, going on with playing football at community level, and then going on to the provincial team and through high school. And then, you know, I ended up being here. So, yeah.
You got, you know, it's such a great Winnipeg story. And I mean, and you know, I was reading Taylor Allen, by the way, did a great piece on you in the Free Press for people that would like to check out and read more about it. And it's a real thing, though. I mean, you come from halfway around the world. You don't know anything about where you are. And,
right.
You know, depending on the situation, there can be some pitfalls and certain people get pulled in the wrong direction. And,
right.
You know, athletics in general have always been something that, you know, again, you hear it kind of keeps kids out of trouble, if you will. And,
sure.
You know, obviously a big part of your background. I mean, you go to Massey and have a great career and then join the U of M Bisons. I have to ask you about Coach Dobie. He is, you know, having worked there before and you know him quite well. I mean, the relationships he has with his players has always been something that I've just admired. And I think a lot about football is team building and having everyone feel like they are a part of it. Tell us about, you know, about just joining the Bisons. I mean, you know, becoming part of that club and you know, over these past few years, growing from you know, a rookie to one of the leaders of the team.
Most definitely. My relationship with the Bisons actually started way before my 12th grade. It started in grade 9 when I was playing provincial team Red River Cup, and that was the first time I really got introduced to, you know, Coach Dobie. We had a banquet there, and, you know, actually former in last year's draft, Dante Bull, he played for BC. And so we played for Winnipeg, and we had a banquet at the end of it. So Coach Dobie, you know, he's talking and he like talks about football. He always brings up this story and he brings it up all the time. He's like, you know, you have Dante Bull who's like 6'8", and like you have me at this time. I'm just a little scrawny, like 5'8" kid, like, you know, I'm tiny, I'm in 9th grade. And he's like, this is the beauty of football, right? Like, you have people who look like this, people who look like this, and they can both excel, and there's always a place for them. But, you know, I always knew growing up in Winnipeg, you know, I had dreams of, you know, potentially going and playing ball down in the States. But, you know, I knew if I was going to be here in Canada, I was going to be a Bison. That was plain and simple. And that was because of the relationship I had with Coach Dobie. From the moment, you know, I interacted with him, he met my parents. It was so genuine. And, you know, growing up, I was watching the Bisons, I was watching the Bombers, and I just, you know, love the culture of football here in Winnipeg specifically, you know, and having the head coach of the Bisons, I was like, oh my God, this guy's like, it's Coach Dobie. Like, you hear him, he's a legend in the city, right? And, you know, he had a really good relationship with my former high school coach. And, you know, but from there on, I would be talking to Coach Dobie like every year, you know, just talking. It was not even anything about career. And obviously, you know, we would throw in the remarks of like, oh yeah, when you're a Bison, you know, like da-da-da. But in my head, I knew. And on top of that, like, I played Recruit Ready, which was a 7-on-7 travel program here. And, all the coaches were ex-Vanier Cup champs. And so, like, for me, like, when we heard about the Vanier Cup, it was like, whoa, like, we wanted to do that when we were as kids. So, the Bisons have been a family way before I even joined the program. And, joining the program, you just feel that. And you said it yourself, like, the relationship that, Coach Dobie, Coach Pierre, Coach Mitchell, the coordinators, the assistant staff have, like, a lot of the staff there are volunteer coaches, but there's nowhere else that they'd rather be. And you feel that passion. So, going there, it's like, wow, like, when you're somewhere where you're wanted, it's just a different feeling, and it makes it easy to work in that environment. So, the Bisons, Lon Lease, are a family, and Coach Dobie specifically, like, the things that he's done, the things that I've learned from him, he's a huge figure in my life. And, like, one of my favorite people. I could go to Coach Dobie about, anything, not even about football, and we'll sit in that office for hours and just talk, and he'll share his experiences. If you know Coach Dobie, you know that he loves to talk, right? So
he is loquacious, to say the least. And you know what? I'm glad you mentioned Stan Pierre and Von Mitchell. I mean, those guys, the entire staff. I mean, that is one thing about football. There's so many people that you don't see that are huge parts of the day-to-day goings-on that, give young men like you the best possible chance to succeed and move forward. And you're on the cusp of that right now. You got to tell us about this. I mean, as you, have had, kind of grown as a player and matured within the Bison program with an eye on the next step. Last year, you went down for, a month to Houston, and ended up, along with quarterback Jackson Tuchinski, ended up training with Terrell Owens. I mean, how did that even come together? And tell us about that experience and what being far away in Texas. Football is religion down there. I can't imagine what that experience was like for you as you progress towards something like the CFL Combine this week and a potential professional career.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so after the 2022 season, I just knew that I wanted to keep elevating my game. I was, by the grace of God, I was selected as an All-Canadian, and I made that. But I knew that, awards are cool and everything, but it's the hard work that got us to where we are now. And so I knew that I had to double up on that work. And I knew that, the resources that I was looking for were going to be, elsewhere, just because I felt like I needed to go and be in that environment. So I have family who stays down in Houston. So my dad's brother, my uncle, and has his son, my cousin. And I stayed with him, and, Jackson came down the first time that we went, and, we were locking in. You go down there, and Coach Delfonte Diamond, he trains the top receivers across the league, like, from CeeDee Lamb to Tank Dell to, Deebo Samuel, all these guys. And so for me as a receiver, I'm like, I want to be able to go and level up. And on top of that, not only does he train NFL guys, but, Lucky Whitehead's there, Stephen Dunbar goes down there, Kerry Whitehall. So there's guys who are in the CFL as well who are down there. And thing about it, he understands the game of football at a very, global level. And for me, I knew that I wanted to go and work. And so after this season, I knew getting ready for the draft, I was going to really want to lock in. So, I went down there for 2 months, and, through there, I had built a really organic relationship with Coach Diamond. And that's Unc. He really is someone who prioritizes everybody who trains, and he's not just there to, post some cool little stuff on, the IG. Like, he's really about the business and understand football. When you're preparing for a combine, you see a lot of guys who go out there and they're training, and they'll be doing all these crazy releases. They'll be doing but it's not about that. When you're out here at a combine, coaches want to see, first of all, who you are as a player, but they also want to, when they're evaluating you specifically as a receiver, they're looking at your breaks, they're looking at your sticks, they're looking, can you catch the ball? And they want to see how efficient you are. So when we're down there for 2 months, it was all about working on what some people might call the basics. But if you don't have, like Coach said, if you don't have your primaries, that's about 80% of the game is primaries. You can't do all that other stuff. So, really refining on those types of tools. And, at this point, you got other people were preparing for the NFL draft as well going on. So, wide receivers like Keon Coleman's there, Xavier Worthy, who just broke the 40-yard record. He's there. He trains, Coach Diamond trains him. And then so Terrell Owens, I remember after our session, coach is like, hey, yo, stay by. Like, he's like, OG's coming by today. And I was like, oh, yeah. I'm like, who's OG? He's like, the GOAT. And I'm like Terrell Owens. And I'm like, oh, whoa. So, me, I love football. I'm a big fan. And I just like, even if it was like I would just had to sit, I just wanted to sit and observe and learn, so ended up staying for that session. And the next day, going in, T.O. is back out there with his son because his son is getting prepared for his pro day, which just had happened this past week here too. So T.O. was out there, and he wasn't just out there standing around. He laced up his cleats, and he was.
He thinks he could still play right now, doesn't he?
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I'm not gonna lie to you. Shape.
Yeah, like he might be able to sign a little contract. I don't know if he'll be able to last 18 games, but he might be able to sign a contract. But it was incredible because just being able to just talk football, learn the game from the perspective of like a Hall of Fame receiver, like one of the greatest to do it. Being recognized for my skills from him, it was able to really go out and I was like, wow, like. This is incredible. I'm definitely doing something right, being in this environment. And again, just being able to just soak in all that knowledge and learn about the receiver position, the ins and outs. It was so much. And that Houston is like another home to me now. Like, that's not the last time I'll be down there. Like, we're going to be locked in. And so, yeah, just incredible environment. When you're around those guys, it's like, you're competing, there's that moment of like, these guys are in the NFL, but at the same time, we're all here to get work, so it's not like, it's more like, let's work, you run a rep, I'm running the next rep. I'm trying to beat you. I'm trying to match you. I'm trying to go. So it makes the environment so competitive, and it makes the environment one that just forces you to grow.
Bison receiver AK Gassama with us on Winnipeg Sports Talk. It certainly sounds like you've left no stone unturned in preparation for the Combine this week. How are you feeling, and how excited are you for this opportunity that will hopefully lead to the next step?
I'm so excited. And like you said, you definitely have those feelings of like, it's a very big moment. It's one of the biggest moments in my sports career. But to say that I'm nervous, I feel like I can't, because I feel like I prepared myself the way that I needed to, and I'm just so ready to go out there now and just put it all into play, put it all on the field. And, I'm going to be surrounded by tremendous athletes from all across the country. So, when we're out here, we're all trying to be the best. We're all trying to compete at the highest level. We're all trying to, get to that next level. So I think it's just naturally we're going to bring out the best out of each other. And for me, I just want to go out there and prove that, I am the person I say I am, the work that I've put in, and, that I'm a complete receiver. And, not only that on the field, but, show teams that I'm someone that they would want, in their organization to represent, because more than football, I try to be the best version of myself every day and try to be the best AK. So I know that any opportunity that I'm given, I'm taking that and I'm running with it and giving 110%. So yeah, we're ready. We're locked and loaded, and I can't wait till, fun begins on Thursday.
AK, this has been an absolute pleasure having you on the program. I mean, as I say, it's been great to see what you've been able to do on the field for the brown and gold. And I'd be lying if I didn't say I would love to see things work out and maybe hear a certain team in blue and gold call your name in the draft. But first things first, you worry about taking care of business this week at the CFL Combine right here in Winnipeg. All the best. You certainly sound like you're ready for it. We wish you well, and we'll definitely have to do this again. This is a really, really fun interview. And as I say, good luck, kill it, and we'll talk to you again soon. All the best.
Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate you so much. God bless.
Oh, man, what a great conversation with AK. Obviously, great comments in the chat, too. Infectious energy. And I hope he goes out and kicks ass at the Combine. And would love to hear his name picked by our Blue Bombers at the draft. Going to get some good young Canadians coming in behind and learning behind some of the best in the game. Would not be a bad spot, I think, for a young man. Maybe following the footsteps of another former Bison like Nick Dembski, who's doing great things with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. All right, we got to get to the Coolbet lines. Busy night in the National Hockey League. But just before we do that, Remis, some very sad news in the National Hockey League. I'm seeing reports, Frank Saravelli and a number of people following the National Hockey League, that Chris Simon has passed away.
Yeah, Chris Simon, legendary NHL enforcer, won a Stanley Cup with Colorado in 1996, went to the final with Calgary in 2004, Washington 97, died age 52. So, big fighter, concussion symptoms, post-concussion
One of
symptoms.
the most intimidating players in NHL history, and that is not an exaggeration. An absolute menace on the ice, referred to as a teddy bear off the ice. Wawa, Ontario native. Every time I've ever done that drive out east in Canada, you get into Wawa, and you think of Chris Simon. And anyways, condolences to his friends and family. No real details on what happened, but real loss for the game. A guy that was as tough as they come. And a Stanley Cup champion, as Michael mentioned, with the Colorado Avalanche in '96. We'll talk more about this tomorrow, but let's just quickly hit a couple of the details coming out of the NHL GMs meetings, Remo, and a couple of new challenges. Although no changes to the offside review. I think there's building support. Maybe they just do away with it, but whatever, that's not changing. But it sounds like puck over glass penalties may go to a coach's challenge now, or there will be one for that, as well as friendly fire high sticks.
Yeah, so these are just the GMs getting together and proposing rule changes. They have to pass them, but they proposed most rule changes since, I think, the 2004 lockout is what I'm seeing reported here by Chris Johnston and Darren Dreger. So they looked at changes to 3-on-3 overtime. No changes there. They're not going to have a shot clock or backcourt violation, anything like that. But the biggest ones they're looking at, puck over glass penalties can go to a coach's challenge. We've seen late in a game where it's hard to see and you want to get a second look at. And the other one, friendly fire high sticks. Like, sometimes a guy gets high stick, but it's his own teammate's stick that gets high sticked into a guy's face. And now a coach will be able to challenge and review that. My only comment on this, Huss, is shouldn't be up to the coaches to fix the refs' mistake. What if they use the challenge earlier or something and they don't have the challenge? So, I don't know. I think there should be some kind of referee who looks at it. And if you can see it in like 30 seconds and reverse it, that's fine. You shouldn't have to go to a big review every time. But they want to get the calls right. If this is what they think is going to do that, sure. But I don't know. I don't think it should be up to the coaches to fix the refs' mistakes. That's my only comment.
Yeah, no changes to 3-on-3 overtime. There'd been talk about extended length. You'd have to get the PA to agree to. But the backcourt violation, sort of basketball style. But anyways, there will be no changes to 3-on-3 overtime moving forward. And then again, the Coyote saga continues. It sounds like relocation's on the table if the Coyotes don't win this land auction. But land auction is still a ways away. So I'm not sure what happens over the course of the next few months. Even if they get it, I mean, how much longer does that mean they're playing in Mullet Arena, which I don't think is very popular. I guarantee it's not popular with the PA, and I don't think it's popular with the rest of the members of the National Hockey League. So we will pay attention to that. Let's get over to the Coolbet lines. Had a fun lock shop today with the fellows talking a little March Madness. By the way, get into the March Madness pool. If you're in it last year, I think you're in it again. You just need to go in and activate your team and make your picks. Great exclusives for March Madness over at Coolbet. You can click those on the Coolbet exclusives. They'll fill you in. We have the ones, the Creighton, Arizona, UConn, and Houston to make the Final Four, 85-1. Dusty's got one in there as well. Our partner parlay for today, Predators over the Sharks to win by 2, Wild to beat Anaheim, Vancouver to beat Buffalo, both in regulation. That's boosted up to plus 475. As far as the games go tonight, the Jets are, I believe, even money, or at least last time. Oh, they're now plus 105 to win tonight against the New York Rangers. And I do have a WST exclusive for tonight's game. Let's stay hot with these. Jets to win, Toffoli, Ehlers, and Morrissey all to record a point. plus 675 with a little boost from Patty and Jake. So those are all there for you, awaiting in the Coolbet exclusives if you want to ride tonight. As far as the games go, Boston minus 227, 221 faves against the Sens. The Wings minus 172 faves against the Blue Jackets. Devils minus 117 favorites over the Penguins. Mentioned the Jets plus 105 underdogs at MSG. The Leafs minus 136 favorites in Philly. Sean Couturier, healthy scratch tonight for the Flyers. The Hurricanes minus 151 faves over the Islanders. Nashville, massive favorite, minus 424 over San Jose. Colorado minus 214 tonight over St. Louis. I actually think the Blues might win this game, Remo, minus 180, plus 180.
Yeah, the Blues are playing pretty well, Huss. Big win over the weekend. Big over the weekend. So, I don't know, Colorado, they're coming off that last-second win against the Oilers. They've been playing pretty well. Sean Walker scored. I mean, he's paid off right away. I mean, I really like their moves at the deadline. So, on the road against St. Louis, I know, big favorite, so maybe you do want to go with the home dog there. So that is a game. That's a 8 p.m. start. So
8 o'clock. There's tons of games tonight. The Oilers are a massive favorite over the Habs. Wild minus 219 over the Ducks. Kings minus 370 over the Blackhawks. Canucks minus 191 over the Sabres. And then this is a good one to end it off. Lightning and Golden Knights. Lightning plus 116. The Golden Knights minus 136. Get on over to Coolbet. They got the Women's Worlds. Valspar will be hitting that in the lock shop tomorrow. And again, everything else in the Coolbet exclusives. We got to get this pot up, though, with the early start, though. Big thanks to Jeff Hamilton, a.k.a. Gassama, and, of course, Jim Cerny, all of our sponsors. Have a great one tonight, folks. Enjoy the game, and we'll see you tomorrow at 1 p.m. right here on WST.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.